Platform to celebrate the World Bee Day. We welcome you all. First of all, I would like to thank our mentor, Dr. A.K. Sharma sir, Regional Education Officer, Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, for organizing such webinars on special days. Sir, we are grateful to you for your consistent guidance and support. Thanks always, sir, for your advice and insights for our professional growth and the time and efforts you have invested in mentoring us. But before we start, let us have the blessings of the Almighty. Lord Ganesha Vandana brings good fortune in both personal and professional life. Divine blessings of Lord Ganesha purifies the soul of the worshippers. So let's start the session with Ganesh Vandana.
जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश प्यारे जय जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश प्यारे एक दंत अति विशाल शोभित सिंदूर भाल मोतियन के कंठ माल नैनारत नारे जय गणेश जय गणेश प्यारे सुर नर मुनि धरत ध्यान पावत बैकुंठ धाम तुलसीदास करत नमन शरण में तिहारे जय गणेश जय गणेश प्यारे जय गणेश प्यारे
Now, I would like to invite Mrs. Harpreet ma'am, our resource person for today's session. Harpreet Kaur is PGT Chemistry from Bharati Vidya Bhavan SL Public School, Amritsar, having an experience of 22 years. She is being awarded with CBSE Best PGT Chemistry Teacher Award in 2021. She is a CBSE resource person, a guide teacher for National Children's Science Congress, CBSE Science Fair, Inspire Award, National Innovation Foundation for the past 22 years. Bees are part of the biodiversity on which we all depend for our survival. A third of the world's population food production depends on the bees. Bees provide a model for precise, compassionate community that can be achieved only through attentiveness, communication, and hard work. Without taking much of the time, I would like to invite Harpreet ma'am to share her views. Harpreet ma'am, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Just give me a minute to share the screen. Is my screen visible and am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
So, wishing everyone a happy World Bee Day. We all recognize the vital role bees play in sustaining life on Earth and take action to safeguard their future. This day reminds us of the little creatures that do so much for our planet. It's a day to appreciate bees and learn how to help them. The theme for 2025 is Be Inspired by Nature to Nourish Us All. This theme is about working with nature just like bees do. Bee teaches us that even the smallest creatures can have the big impact. They remind us to work together and care for our planet. On this World Bee Day, let's take a moment to think about bees. Let's promise to protect them and make our children also aware of the role of the bees in our life and need to safeguard them. As I've already described, the purpose of this day is to acknowledge the role of the bees and other pollinators for the health of our ecosystem and sustainable development, to raise the awareness of the importance of pollinators, the threats they face, and the means to safeguard them. Why this day is celebrated on 20th of May? As in the month of May, Northern Hemisphere sees bees and nature develops fusely. Southern Hemisphere enters autumn when high products are harvested and the season of honey and honey-based products begin. 20th, may I request everyone to please mute? 20th May is the birth date of Anton Jensa, a Slovenian beekeeper, the pioneer of modern beekeeping and one of the greatest authorities on the subject of bees. Slovenia was one of the first countries to prohibit the use of certain pesticides harmful to the bees in the territory. In 2014, Slovenia launched initiative to declare World Bee Day, and the UN approved Slovenia's proposal to proclaim 20th May as World Bee Day in December 2017. Small creatures, but with a huge benefits. Bees are among the hardest working creatures on the planet, providing important ecosystem service of ensuring pollination and thus reproduction of many cultivated and wild plants, which is crucial for the food production, human livelihoods, and biodiversity. 85% of the plants exist because of the bees, as the bees are responsible for their pollination. 1/3 of all food we eat that depends on pollinators. More than 100 types of crops are pollinated by bees. These small creatures, they are with the huge benefits for the mankind. They are the source of livelihood as the individuals engage in beekeeping and sell the products to generate income. They are the farmers' friends. Honeybee pollinate agricultural crops and are crucial ecologically and also economically. They are responsible for the pollination of flowers. Typically, an ordinary colony of about 50,000 individuals can pollinate 500,000 flowers each day. They are the source of medicine, as honeybee products such as pollen, bee wax, and honey are used as health supplements. Despite their crucial role, bee populations are declining due to habitat loss, increasing agricultural practices, and climate change. More than 2,000 varieties of bees are known, and honeybees, they are most common among them. They are social insects and they live in colonies. They show the division of labor. And broadly, there are three types of individuals in the colony: the queen bee, worker bee, and drones. Queen bee is the largest member and the fertile female of the colony. They are formed from the fertile eggs. The queen is responsible for laying eggs in the colony, and the lifespan of the queen bee is 3 to 4 years. It may lay up to 2,000 eggs in a day. Workers are the sterile female bees. They are the girls on the mission and the smallest members of the colony. They are the multitaskers. Their function is to collect honey, look after the young ones, clean the comb, defend the hive, and maintain the temperature of the hive. Very young workers are the nurse bees, and they feed larvae. Mature bees, they become guards and foraging bees that collect pollens and nectar from the flowers. Drones are the fertile males that develop from unfertilized eggs. They are larger than workers and smaller than queens. Their main function is to fertilize the eggs produced by the queens, and they don't have the stings. Now let's watch the video to see how the bees make the honey.
This out isn't easy. It's not like bees can tell us. And bees are really kind of secretive. They live in a hive. We can't just pop our heads in there and check it out. Plus, they've got those stingers. They really wouldn't be happy about that if we did. But there is a way to get inside a beehive and see what's going on. Can you guess? How could we find out what's going on inside a beehive? Now would be a good time to pause the video and discuss. Okay, you ready? Well, one possibility might be to wear a bee suit where you can't get stung, and then use tiny lenses and cameras to look inside the hive. And that is one thing we can do. In fact, even easier than that. Many bees are willing to live in hives constructed by people. So if you make clear sides, you can actually watch what they're doing. By creating these see-through hives, scientists have been able to carefully observe what bees do and have unlocked the secret of how bees make all that sweet, delicious honey. If you watch a hive, you'll see bees coming and going. You might know that bees are very busy, flying around from flower to flower, then coming back to the hive. But what are they doing? Watch as a bee lands on a flower. You'll see it has a little tongue right there. You see that? Here's another video where you can really see the tongue. This one on a bumblebee. Inside of every flower is a tiny pool of sugar water that's made by the plant. This is what's called nectar. It's such a tiny amount to us, it's hard to even notice. But on flowers like this one, called honeysuckle, you can actually taste it. It's nothing like honey at this point. It's clear, it's very runny, and only just a tiny bit sweet. But it turns out that bees aren't slurping it because they're thirsty. When they do this, the nectar goes into a special honey stomach for storage. Once a bee gets back to the hive, things start to get a little weird. They spit it out again and pass it to other bees, who spit it out and in turn pass it to other bees. And they do this a few times. This part might seem really gross, and scientists were confused by it at first. But by studying the bodies of bees, scientists were able to figure out that inside the honey stomach, bees have a special liquid called an enzyme that, as it mixes with the nectar, makes it thicker and stickier, more and more like honey. So by passing it back and forth like that, bees are adding more and more enzyme to the nectar. This is what turns nectar into honey. Once they've done this enough times, they store the liquid honey into little containers they make out of wax. This is called the honeycomb. Why are bees doing all this? It's not for us. They make all of this honey to feed their babies. For that reason, it might seem mean of us to take honey away from them. But almost all of the honey that gets sold in stores doesn't come from wild bees. Instead, people raise bees on farms, just like other farm animals. The bees on farms make much more honey than their babies need. So farmers collect that extra honey and sell it to people. So in summary, Bees make honey by collecting a sugary water called nectar from flowers, and then allowing that nectar to mix with a special substance inside one of their stomachs.
Now, why we need bees? Because without bees, our food security is at risk. Without bees, the biodiversity is at risk. And without bees, the ecosystems are at risk. We all need to be informed that declining bee populations that pose threat to the global food security and nutrition, biodiversity, and ecosystem health. Bees and other pollinators are declining in abundance in many parts of the world, largely due to intensive farming practices, monocropping, excessive use of agricultural chemicals, and higher temperatures associated with climate change, affecting not only the crop yields but also nutrition. If this trend continues, nutritious crops such as fruits, nuts, and many vegetables will be substituted increasingly by staple crops like rice, corn, and potatoes, eventually resulting in an imbalanced diet. The absence of bees and other pollinators would wipe out coffee, apples, almonds, tomatoes, cocoa, to name a few of the crops that rely on pollination. We all depend on the survival of bees. Bees and other pollinators such as butterflies, bats, and hummingbirds are increasingly under the threat from human activities. Pollination is, however, a fundamental process for the survival of our ecosystem. Nearly 90% of the world's wild flowering plant species, they depend entirely or at least in part on animal pollination, along with more than 75% of world's food crops and 35% of global agricultural land. Not only do pollinators contribute directly to the food security, but they are key to conserving biodiversity. We all depend on pollinators, and it's therefore crucial to monitor their decline and halt the loss of biodiversity. To raise awareness of the importance of pollinators, the threats they face, and their contribution to the sustainable development, the UN designated 20th May as World Bee Day. These are some of the impacts of bee decline. The decline of honeybee has significant repercussions for both agricultural systems and ecosystems. As primary pollinators, honeybees play a crucial role in the reproduction of many flowering plants, including a wide range of fruits, vegetables, and nuts. The decline of honeybee population has led to pollination crisis with far-reaching impacts. One of the most notable impacts of honeybee decline is the reduction in the crop yields and quality. Honeybees are responsible for pollinating a substantial portion of world's food crops. And without adequate pollination, many fruits, vegetables, and nuts would see a decline in the production, resulting in lower yields and potentially compromising the quality and size of the harvested products. This, in turn, can lead to increased food prices, a reduced availability of certain crops, and potential economic implications for farmers and consumers alike. Then disruptions in ecosystems and biodiversity. Beyond agricultural systems, The decline of honeybee also disrupts the ecosystem and biodiversity. Bees are keystone pollinators, meaning they have a disproportionate impact on the structure and stability of ecosystems. As bees visit flowers in search of nectar and pollen, they inadvertently transfer the pollen from one plant to another, facilitating plant reproduction. This process contributes to the maintenance of plant diversity, which forms the foundation of healthy and resilient ecosystems. It's not just the honeybees that are affected. A reduced pollination by honeybees can result in a decline in the plant species diversity and alter the composition of plant communities. This in turn affects the availability of food and habitat for other organisms, including insects, birds, mammals that depend on plants for their survival. The decline of honeybees can disrupt the intricate web of interactions within ecosystems, potentially leading to imbalances and effects on biodiversity. Moreover, other pollinators, such as wild bees, butterflies, and birds, also rely on floral resources and may be indirectly affected by the decline of honeybees. When honeybees are in decline, the increased pressure on the other pollinators to fill the pollination gap can strain their populations and contribute to further declines in biodiversity. May I request you to mute? Then cultural and economical impacts. The impact of honeybee decline extends beyond immediate ecological consequences. Honeybees are also culturally and economically significant. Beekeeping, honey production, and pollination services provide livelihood for many beekeepers and contribute to local economies. The decline of honeybees can disrupt these industries, resulting in financial challenges for beekeepers and potential economic losses for agricultural sectors reliant on honeybee pollination. Addressing honeybee decline is crucial not only to safeguard our food production systems, but also to preserve the intricate balance and biodiversity of ecosystems. By taking steps to protect honeybees and promote pollinator-friendly practices, we can mitigate the negative impacts on crop yields, maintain plant diversity, and support the overall health and resilience of ecosystems. So there's an urgent need to save the bees. So small, but so important to our ecosystem. These are some of the causes of honeybee decline. One is the unsustainable agricultural practices, exposure to pesticides. One of the primary causes for contribution to the decline of honeybee population is a widespread use and their exposure to the pesticides. Neonicotinoid insecticides in particular have raised concerns due to their harmful effects on bees. These systemic pesticides are applied to seeds or sprayed onto the crops and can persist in plant tissues, including pollen and nectar. Bees in their search for food come into contact with these contaminated plant parts and they bring the pesticide-laden pollen and nectar back to the hive. The exposure to neonicotinoids that weakens the bee's immune system, impairs their navigation abilities, affects their reproductive success, and over time, this can lead to colony losses and population decline. Pesticide drift from the nearby agricultural fields and their use in home gardens and landscaping also contribute to honeybee exposure. Habitat loss and fragmentation are significant contributors to honeybee decline. The expansion of agriculture And urbanization has resulted in the destruction and conservation of natural landscapes into monoculture farmlands and urban areas. Honeybees rely on a variety of nectar and pollen sources throughout the year to meet their nutritional needs. And the loss of these diverse forage resources limits the availability of essential nutrients, weakening honeybee colonies and making them more vulnerable to other stressors. Then thirdly, the decline of wildflowers and flowering plants in agricultural landscapes also has the detrimental impact on honeybee populations. Modern agricultural practices often prioritize high-yielding crop varieties that may not provide sufficient floral resources for bees. The lack of flowering plants during critical foraging periods can result in nutritional deficiencies and compromise the overall health and survival of honeybees. And last but not the least, honeybees also face significant challenges from the parasites and diseases. The varroa mite is one of the most destructive pests affecting the honeybee colonies worldwide. These parasitic mites infest honeybees, feeding on the bees and transmitting viruses. Varroa mites weaken bees' immune system, shorten their lifespan, and can lead to the collapse of the entire colonies if left untreated. Moreover, honeybees are susceptible to various viral, bacterial, and fungal infections. As an instance, deformed wing virus is a common viral infection that can cause deformities and reduced flight capabilities in bees. Nosema, a fungal disease, affects the bees' digestive system and compromises their overall health. These diseases weaken honeybee colonies, making them more susceptible to other stressors and reducing their ability to thrive. To address the decline of honeybees and protect their populations, various conservation efforts are underway. One key aspect is reducing the pesticide usage and promoting alternatives to harmful chemicals. Integrated pest management practices that focus on minimizing pesticide application and using more targeted approaches can help protect honeybees while still managing the pests effectively. Habitat restoration and preservation are also crucial for supporting honeybee populations. Creating bee-friendly habitats, such as wildflower meadows, provides essential forage resources for bees. Conserving natural landscapes and minimizing habitat fragmentation are equally important to ensure bees have access to diverse and abundant food sources. Thirdly, the beekeeper education and best practices, especially when removing or relocating the bees, play a vital role in conservation. By providing training on hive management and disease prevention, beekeepers can adopt sustainable practices that promote bee health and reduce colony losses. Proper beekeeping practices contribute to the overall well-being of honeybee colonies, such as regular health checks, monitoring for pests, responsible use of treatments. Raising public awareness about the bee decline and its impacts is crucial for supporting and encouraging it. Educating individuals about the importance of bees as pollinators and the potential consequences of their decline can inspire people to take steps to protect them. Encouraging individuals to plant bee-friendly gardens with a variety of flowering plants and supporting local beekeepers help provide additional forage resources and supports the beekeeping community. Promoting collaboration and sharing knowledge across the sectors can contribute to more comprehensive and impactful solutions. It is through collaboration and commitment to preserve these vital pollinators, that we can secure a future where bees thrive and continue to fulfill their crucial role in our environment. Together, these efforts can help address the impacts of bee decline and ensure a more sustainable future for both our food systems and natural world. As bees can't see red, but they love the blue. So if you want to encourage honeybee in your garden, then probably the best flowering plants are lavender and rosemary. Now, how the hive makes its most important decision. One of the popular misconceptions about honeybees is that their lives are ruled by a queen, but their colonies are remarkably complex in many ways, comparable to an animal brain, despite being individually quite simple. And every year, faced with the life or death problem of choosing a new home, honeybees stake everything on a process that includes collective fact-finding, rigorous debate, and consensus building. It's a democratic process that humans might do well to excel. When a beehive becomes overpopulated, usually in the late spring or early summer, some two-thirds of the workers and the old queen, often up to 10,000 bees in total, leave home in swarm and gather on a nearby tree branch in a beer-shaped cluster. From there, a few hundred scout bees, which are often the bees that have the most experience with the world beyond the hive, take off in all directions, searching for the tree cavities. The ideal space for a new hive can be difficult to find. The opening should be small, about 10 meters off the ground, and lead to a 40-liter cavity inside a sturdy living tree. Each scout that discovers a promising site inspects it to see if it is suitably roomy and secure, and then returns to the cluster to announce her findings by performing a waggle dance. The dance indicates both the location and the quality of the site. As the scouts report on their respective sites, other scouts observe and follow the directions to the indicated locations. Each scout inspects the site she navigated to, and if she agrees that it's a desirable dwelling place, she too performs a waggle dance when she returns to the swarm. Bees are thoroughly honest advisors. The competing information that scouts bring back to the swarm eventually, usually over a day or two, enough scouts will agree on the best site to cause them to induce the rest of the swarm to fly there. Even though an individual bee is not particularly intelligent, but the collective intelligence of the group produces impressive results. Almost always, about 90% of the time, the swarm chooses the best of the options it has found. Now, what are the inspirations that we can draw from this hive decision? For millions of years, the scouts in bee swarms have faced the task of selecting proper homes. Evolution by natural selection has structured them so that they make the best possible decisions. What works well for the bee swarms can also work well for human groups. We can learn from the bee swarms the guidelines for achieving the higher collective IQ. Remind the group's members of their shared interests and foster mutual respect so they work together productively. The scout bees know instinctually that their interests are aligned towards choosing the optimum home site. So they work together as a team and there are no clashes in the bee swarm. Then explore the diverse solutions to the problem to maximize the group's life scout bees search far and wide to discover a broad assortment of possible living quarters. Aggregate the group's knowledge through a frank debate. Use the power of a fair and open competition to distinguish good options from the bad ones. The scout bees rely on a turbulent debate among the groups, supporting different options to identify a winner. Whichever group first attracts sufficient supporters win the debate. Then minimize the leader's influence on the group's thinking by functioning as an impartial moderator rather than as a boss. A leader enables this group to use its combined knowledge and brain power. A leader should be a facilitator or enabler of the decision-making process. All should be working towards a common goal and everybody encouraged to offer solutions. Such a scenario will encourage diverse and creative suggestions. The scout bees have no dominating leader and so can take a broad and deep look at their options. Then fifth one is to balance the interdependence, that is information sharing, and independence, that's the absence of peer pressure among the group members. Only if the ideas are shared publicly but evaluated privately will the group be good at exploring its options and making the good choices. Sharing positivity and enthusiasm can encourage our colleagues. So often we focus on the problems and fixing them. Scout bees share freely the news of their findings, but each one makes their own independent decision of whether or not to support a site. To achieve collective success as a team, we must have inherent trust in one another. The honeybee is one of Mother Nature's best example of a highly efficient and effective supersocial species. A typical hive houses 65,000 bees, each with individual roles within the colony. Each bee has the ability to communicate incredibly complex ways that teach us about building high-performing teams and effective leadership. As an example, honeybees always move toward the stressors in their environment as a unit. When bees release an alarm pheromone to alert that something is scary, the entire colony trusts the alarm and immediately moves toward the stressor together. They don't disregard the alarm or assume it's another bee's job. Instead, they come together for the good of the colony and do so without hesitation. There is unbreakable, deep-rooted trust that is inherent in a bee colony, a quality that almost no human teams in our world currently have. It's important that we intentionally and mindfully work to replenish this sense of faith within our teams through our actions or inactions. When the trust breaks down, the team will as well. The bees shows us that with the right organization, democratic groups can be remarkably intelligent, even smarter than the smartest individuals in them. Now coming to the beehive, that it's very expensive, not in terms of money, but in terms of labor. A small piece of honeycomb, about an ounce, represent 20,000 bee miles for collection of nectar. That's the raw material. Over 110,000 bee hours spent transforming that nectar to wax, and more than 180,000 bee hours for converting the wax to comb. Since honeycomb is so expensive to construct, it appears economy in the use of wax is very important for the welfare of the hive. The hexagonal honeycomb is absolutely perfect in economizing labor and wax, as stated by Charles Darwin. While selecting hexagonal structures for their hives, bees act as great mathematicians and engineers. A hexagonal cell requires the minimum amount of wax for construction while it stores the maximum amount of honey. So the bee uses the most appropriate form possible. A regular shape which fits properly without any wastage are the geometrical figures with equal sides, that is equilateral triangles, squares, and hexagons. When we analyze the surface area individually for the given volume of various shapes, obviously the circular shape is more efficient than any other shape. But if circles are joined together, there's a wastage of space, and moreover, the circles can't share the common walls. Lateral surface area is treated equal to the amount of materials required. When we analyze the surface area with respect to the sharing of walls for the given volume to the various shapes, obviously the hexagonal shape is more efficient than any other shape. Hexagon uses the least material and provide maximum storage volume. That's the most strongest and economical design. Bees make honeycomb just as if they were the graduates from the best school of engineering. And to better understand why the bee form their hives in the hexagonal form, let's see the mathematics of the beehive.
Do you know bees are mathematicians? Bees build honeycombs where they live, breed, and store honey. The honeycombs are made using wax. This wax is not so easy to produce. To make 1 ounce of wax, bees need to consume 8 ounces of honey. So, they must make a structure using a minimum amount of wax while being able to store the maximum possible honey in it. What shape would be the best for this? In other words, what shape will have the maximum area if the perimeter of all the shapes is kept constant? Let's start with the triangle. Each side is 10 centimeters, so a perimeter of 30 centimeters. Let's fill it with these beads. That's 21 beads. Now, here's a square with each side of 7.5 centimeters. So, the same perimeter, 30 centimeters again. If we take all these beads and put them here, there's some space left. So, the area of this square is more than the triangle. We can fill it with some more beads. A pentagon with the same perimeter? Some more beads can go here. Hexagon? Even more. The area keeps increasing with the number of sides. So, the largest area must be of the shape with infinite sides. And that is a circle. So why don't bees use circles? Well, because it leaves a lot of gaps, wasting space and making the structure less sturdy. What about polygons? Triangles don't leave any gaps. Same with squares. Pentagons, 3 of them joined together leave a gap, while bringing in a 4th one makes them overlap. So, pentagons don't work. Hexagons, they can be arranged like this without any gaps. 3 hexagons meeting at any point. What about heptagons? 2 leave a gap and 3 of them overlap. Same with octagons and every other polygon after that. So, only triangles, squares, and hexagons to choose from. And with the same amount of wax, which one will have the maximum area? Hexagons. And that's why a hexagonal structure is what the bees use to store their honey. So, bees don't just buzz around, they do the math too.
Bean-spiked structures, they are found in aircrafts also. The honeycomb structure has a high strength to weight ratio. That is, honeycombs are strong and lightweight. They can withstand a lot of force while minimizing the material usage. The aviation and space industry in particular are the fans of this nature-inspired design. Honeycomb sandwich panels are found throughout the aeroplane components, and whenever lightweight is a premium, honeycomb sandwich construction is very difficult to beat. The cluster living honeycomb houses, they lend a remarkable ratio of living space to floor area. The hexagonal layout makes the apartments feel 1.3 times larger than their actual size. The sloping ceilings provide usable space that would not exist in a traditional building. Now let's watch the bee-inspired architectural structures.
The complex structure of a beehive has always fascinated architects and designers. The hexagonal cells sustain a well-structured society of bees, with tiers and allotted accommodations. The modular structure is easily replicable, load-bearing, and compact. The process of replicating patterns, found in nature, in man-made structures is called biomimicry. Beehives have been inspirations for building typologies throughout history. One of the earliest examples is the ancient beehive huts of Ireland and Scotland. These dry stone construction homes resemble beehive combs. Built as early as 2000 BC, these centuries-old homes retain heat and blend into the landscape. Hawa Mahal in Jaipur has a facade of windows. The windows are arranged in a pattern, with hexagonal profiles resembling a honeycomb. A hexagonal pattern is also seen in many of the structure's jalis and latticework. The porosity created by these patterns allows good ventilation while maintaining privacy. King Abdullah Petroleum Studies and Research Center in Saudi Arabia is a perfect example of biomimicry. Designed by Zaha Hadid architects, the structure resembles a honeycomb pattern in its hexagonal modular structure. Its hexagonal structure allows the project to have longer spans and columnless spaces. Located in Singapore, the hive, also known as the Learning Hub, is a building that resembles a beehive. The building, designed by Heather Wick Studios, is an inventive learning space that features cornerless classrooms, interactive spaces, and a central courtyard. Inspiration for the structure's inward-looking layout is driven from the shape of a beehive. From the compact functionality to its aesthetic applications, beehives have always inspired structurally sound biomimicry, and will continue to do so in the future.
Next, coming to the communication system in bees, that's also a very interesting system. It's waggle dance. Bees don't have ears, but they can sense the vibrations. They communicate with each other through the medium of dance called waggle dance. When bee returns to hive after a successful trip, she wants to let everyone else know where the great source of food is through the waggle dance. She runs in the set direction while shaking her abdomen and then loop around to the right and then shake her abdomen, loop around to the left, completing the pattern of the figure 8. This dance gives a lot of information to the other members of the colony about the direction of the food source, the distance of the food source from the hive, and how excited the food source is. The direction of the food source by the direction in which she runs, which corresponds to the angle of the food source in relation to the position of the sun. To indicate about the distance, the length of the dance making the figure 8 is considered. The longer the length of the dance, farther the food source. Duration of the dance indicates how excited the source is. Now let's watch the video for the better understanding of this unique communication system.
Bees are out there talking to each other right now. The honeybee performs a waggle and rotation dance to share information about the location and distance of a nearby point of interest. Let's say you're stuck in a beehive and your friendly busy bee goes out foraging. On her journey, she finds a flower full of powdery pollen. She heads back to tell you and the rest of the hive where this flower is. How? Distance and direction, my friend. She makes a waggle run, shaking it back and forth real fast while she kind of walks in this straight line. When she gets to the end, she turns to the left, circles back around to the start, waggle run again, now turn to the right, back to the start, waggle run again, turn to the left. You get the idea? Do we really need like a whole electronic waggle bee dance mix? What's really cool is that the length of this waggle run varies, and it varies in a way that's precisely related to bee travel time. Bee travel distance. Closer the destination, the shorter the waggle. In fact, with every second a waggle run lasts, that bee is telling you to travel 1 kilometer. So what, we have kilometers and miles, and bees have waggles? Okay, 1 kilometer, ready to go. But go where? Like a compass, up is this bee's point of reference, which is the sun. Up means towards the sun. The angle of the waggle run tells you where to keep the sun in your sky while you travel. Combine that angle with your distance, and you're ready to go. Other info might be actually hiding in this shake and rotate routine, like familiarity. Experienced bees might pay particular attention to the smell of a familiar flower coming off the dancer, for instance. Or maybe
Let's watch another video for the better understanding of this waggle dance.
A foraging honeybee will eventually discover a new food source, such as a freshly blooming flower or artificial feeder placed by a scientist. After this visit, an interesting thing happens. Over the next few minutes, many other bees arrive at the same location. They don't travel as a group. Instead, each bee finds the food source individually. How could these bees, who held no previous knowledge of this site, suddenly know precisely where the feeder was located? Is it possible that the animals communicate amongst themselves? To answer this question, Austrian biologist Karl von Frisch devised a series of experiments in the 1940s. Researchers at Georgia Tech have reproduced von Frisch's pioneering experiments using a modern observation hive. 2 feeders are placed in different directions away from the hive. At each location, visiting honeybees are marked with a small spot of paint. A separate colour of paint is used at each station, so when a bee returns to the hive, it can easily be determined which feeding site it visited. Before von Frisch, other scientists had observed that returning bees tended to waggle about excitedly in a figure 8 pattern before sharing the collected pollen and nectar with their hive mates. While both sets of bees perform the classic figure 8 dance, the orientation of the dances is offset between the 2 groups. Bees returning from one feeder perform a rotated version of the dance done by the other bees. Incredibly, The angle of rotation precisely matches the angle between the feeding stations and the hive. This must be a clue to the mystery of how the bees are able to share information about the location of food.
So it has been observed that the bees are fully loaded with all the diverse type of skills since centuries ago. The skills we these days call as 21st century skills, that is collaboration, communication, creativity, adaptability, productivity, in which bees are never found failing. Let's be inspired by the bees and put in our endless efforts in collaboration to develop the teams smarter than the smartest individuals, all moving towards the goals of larger interests of the community and spread the prosperity to ensure a healthy and vibrant planet for the future generations. Let's be inspired and also inspire our children that the great things are not done by the impulse, but by a series of sustainable small efforts brought together. Thank you so much. Happy World Bee Day.
Thank you so much, Harpreet
Anyone
ma'am.
who wants to ask question?
Now I would like to invite sir. You want to say something, please? Sharma sir, please.
No, I'm representation. I'm very happy to see the representation. And one thing I want to say is about why bees are attracted to blue. Presentation. Actually, if you see bees, they have receptors respond to blue, green. And ultraviolet light, but not to red. So that's why it was wonderful. A lot of research has been done by Harpreet. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
God bless you. One thing is,
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to invite Mrs. Kalda for formal vote of thanks. Kalda ma'am, please. Namaskar, sir, and fellow colleagues. On the behalf of our team, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Harpreet ma'am of Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, Asal Public School, Amritsar, for her thoughtful and educational presentation on the World Bee Day. We all are incredibly appreciative for sharing your expertise and inspiring us to learn more about essential functions the honeybee plays for the sustenance of our ecosystem. Ma'am, you gave us very interesting facts about honey making, honeybee communication, hive architecture, and the threat posed by pesticides. The spirit of teamwork in the honeybee is highly appreciable, and the same can be inculcated among our students. Thank you once for your invaluable contribution on this significant occasion.
Thank you.
As no event can take shape without hard-working leader, my sincere thanks to Dr. A.K. Sharma sir for organizing this knowledgeable webinar series. Thank you so much, sir.
English.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carla ma'am.
So
Recording in progress.
Thanks, Harpreet ma'am, for such a wonderful and thought-provoking session. Thank you so much for your time, expertise, and dedication. In the end, to conclude the session, let's all be together for Shanti Mantra.
ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ
Thank you so much. Sir, shall we conclude or are we to make host someone else? Sir, shall we conclude? Thank you, everyone. You may leave the session, please.